our faith is faith in Jesus Christ. That's what saves, not the law. The Jews are slaves to the law, therefore they're the children of Hagar. We are free of the law, therefore we're the children of the free woman. The free woman is Sarah. We are really the children of the promise. Christians are the true children of Abraham. And that's his whole argument in Abraham, in Romans and Galatians. Now I bet there's hardly a Christian in the room that knows that. But in fact, that is the basic theological underpinning of Christianity. The Christianity we know. Is that the religion of Jesus? No, I don't think so. I don't think Jesus made any such arguments, but it's the religion of Paul, and Paul most people consider to be the real creator of Christianity as we know it. And I think that is certainly true. Why am I saying it? Because Muhammad makes the very same arguments in the Quran, just slightly different. He doesn't say that the Jews are the children of Hagar and they're the slave people because they're enslaved to the law, and we're the free people, therefore we're the children of the free wife and we're the children of Sarah. He says we actually are the children of Abraham, not of Sarah, through Hagar, and we actually are literally descended, and we came before the others. The others came after us, the Torah of Moses and the religion of Jesus. These are full of lies, and they came later, and we're going back to Abraham's original monotheism. But the argument, you see, of priority of the religion of Abraham, or as Paul calls it, the faith of Abraham, is the same argument. Two world religions are created on the basis of the same argument. Christianity, in the presence of Paul, Islam, in the presence of the way the Quran presents what Abraham's religion was. Both are arguing for Abraham's religion. Now, last point before I get into the things that I want to move on to. When Paul is writing this stuff, he's really interested in northern Syria. He's writing a lot of stuff to northern Syria. That's where Christianity originally took hold, in places like Antioch, Edessa, and other places in northern Syria, for you Muslims in the room in Roman times. And he's writing his letters there, and you see in the Bible stories, Abraham came from northern Syria. Abraham's family originally came from southern Iraq, then they moved up to northern Syria, then they came down into Palestine, and then they settled in the areas, what we call the West Bank today, Nablus, Jerusalem, Hebron, and those places. That's where they settled according to the biblical stories. But they originally started from Haran in northern Syria. And Haran is where Abraham started. In fact, Haran, it takes the name of one of Abraham's brothers or uncles. That's where that name comes from. So, Paul is writing letters to an area where Abraham's name was already looked upon with a certain amount of respect and awe. Therefore, he uses Abraham as the person he wants to focus attention on and what his faith was. And he takes a passage from the book of Genesis where God spoke to Abraham and counted, it says, and God counted his faith as righteousness. Or God counted his faith as justifying him or making him righteous. And that's where Paul runs with. Genesis 15:6, and he says, okay, that's us. That's the Christians. Our faith justifies us. Our faith makes us righteous. And you know what our faith is? Faith in Jesus Christ. And that's what saved us. And that's what you'll find in front of all churches everywhere. But it's really an argument aimed at northern Syrian places where Abraham was an important personage. Now, there's another letter in the New Testament called the letter of James. And the letter of James says, oh, you foolish man. Obviously arguing with a person like Paul, which is why we know there were divisions in the early church about these things. Also focusing on Abraham, saying, it's in the letter of James in the New Testament, don't you know that Abraham was also justified by works because he was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac, and for that reason he was called a friend of God, and that's how we're saved, not by faith, but by faith and works working together. How many are familiar with that particular argument in the New Testament? Well, good. We're learning a little bit about religion here. I tell you, that is in the letter of James. That's an attack on the Pauline position. It's rare that it would get in the New Testament. That's why I write books about James, because I'm trying to rescue him from the oblivion in which the official doctrines threw him. and show that James is related in some way to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is another expertise of mine, which I work on. And that's why I'm known, and that's why I went to Italy, and that's why people know about the work I do, because it's pretty unique in that regard. And so it's interesting to a lot of people. But going over to Islam, you'll find, and I'll show you, where Muhammad over and over again says, and you're saved by faith and works together. And you'll see that Muhammad is right on the Jamesian line on that. That he's talking about faith and works, and I can't give it to you, but it's in, we'll see it in the Surah of the Cow, the second surah, basically the first surah of the Quran, because the first surah is a blessing, and the second surah is called the Surah of the Cow. And you'll see that he says that about 2 or 3 times, faith and works working together, more or less. And I think he picks up a lot of the Jamesian positions in the Quran that are in this argument in northern Syria over how you're saved, faith and works, or just by faith. But Muhammad also picks up the sacrifice of Abraham's son as a very important episode. He picks that up in the Quran too. Now in the Bible and in James and in other parts of the New Testament, it's the sacrifice of Isaac. But for the Muslims, it becomes the sacrifice of Ishmael. That Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Ishmael. And this way he was seen as faithful to God and fulfilling God's word. And therefore that's another big point in the Quran, which he picks up, that you find in the letter of James. And the final thing that you find in all of Islamic ideology and discussion and so on is what you get in the letter of James too, that Abraham is the friend of God. It's in the letter of James. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Abraham is the friend of God, and he was called friend for his faithfulness. And in the Quran, Abraham is called the friend. Any Muslim in the room will tell you that that is true. And what's he called in Arabic? Al-Khalil, the friend, the friend. And so that ideology has come all the way down into the Quran and into Islam. It's not in Paul, it's in James and the Dead Sea Scrolls that Abraham is the friend of God. And then the city named after Abraham in Hebrew is Hebron. Hebron is based on the Hebrew root for Haver. Haver in Hebrew means friend. So the city of Hebron is called the city of friend. And in Islam,